Hello, and welcome to First Geek 411's book club. Before we get started, you can find us in all of the places, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as First Geek 411. Come chat with us at our Discord server. Send us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out the show notes on our website, 1geek411.com. And watch our live show on Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 p.m. Mountain Time. And find us afterwards on YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and check out our sweet merch on our Redbubble store. I'm Shanine, and with me I have Emma.
Heyo.
Hi. And Cameron.
Hello, hello.
And Chris.
Bonjour, comme c'est comme ça?
Si.
Muy bien. Perfecto.
Ça va? Oh oui, ça va.
Ich weiß nicht.
Shanine, you're in Canada. You're supposed to know French.
She's on the other side of Canada.
I know, it's true.
Yo hablo un poco español.
Sí.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
Un poco.
Okay, so everybody's very excited to talk about Ready Player One by Ernest Cline.
I want to say this is 2 book clubs in a row. I've had a physical book and didn't do audiobook. Y'all should be proud of me.
Good job, Cameron. You'll get a gold star.
Yes.
I just don't have my copy here with me. It's at my mom's.
Christopher.
That's where I read it, okay?
All right. In Ready Player One, we read a story in the not-so-distant future where the world is a bit of a mess and most people choose to escape reality by living in the virtual reality of the Oasis. One such person is Wade Watts, or as his online avatar is known, Parsival. The creator of the Oasis, James Halliday, died a few years ago, leaving his fortune and control of the Oasis to the winner of a virtual contest. No one has made any progress in the contest until now. Parsival must now race the other Gunters of the Oasis and a corrupt corporation to find Halliday's Easter egg. What are our brief first impressions?
Okay. So in what world would you leave control of the most important resource to someone that can complete a game?
This world.
I think it's the world that you want to like watch the world burn, and
The
it's
world
like
I wanna live in.
because it's like best case scenario, a cool person wins. Worst case scenario, you're dead. Who cares?
I think the most unbelievable part about it is the lack of restrictions that were put in place for the contest. Like, yeah, that's, I mean, I have some gripes about that.
Yeah.
But
See, and I make that point not to like complain. I think it's a really funny way of doing it, but
yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
like it kind of starts you off. Yeah, it starts you off on like that. Maybe this wasn't the most thought out plan.
Yeah,
but I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, it was definitely like, I think I said this early on, but the first like 9,500 pages felt pretty slow, and then it started to pick up and get interesting and stressful, but in a good way.
I just want the tech to be real.
Yeah.
Hook up my food tube. Let's go.
Exactly. That's all I want in life.
Yeah.
Like Sword Art Online, would I mind getting trapped? Probably not. If someone kept me alive so I can experience it, yeah, sure. But
okay.
I mean, in general, Halliday was not a businessman. Just to Cameron's
No.
point.
Clearly not.
True.
And honestly, in what world would you let that
games.
guy remain the CEO, like throughout the entirety of his life and the life of the corporation?
Not very long.
True. He's more creative director material.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like eventually, even the startup person for a company typically steps down from their CEO or ends up stepping down from their CEO position to allow the growth of the business itself and someone who's better equipped to handle those aspects. Those are my
Yeah.
thoughts.
All right. Yeah. I thought it was just super enjoyable and fun.
Mhm.
I liked it.
I agree.
Yeah. It's definitely a book I would have completely obsessed over in high school and
For
like
sure.
just not left alone for months on end.
I definitely agree. Like there's definitely a time in my lifetime where this would have been the like my friend groups. We are going to watch everything referenced in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Have you read this book before? And did you remember much from the first time?
I have not. So it was an enjoyable read in the grand scheme of things. And I would read it again if I didn't have a giant pile of books to read.
I read it years ago when I got it in my Loot Crate box subscription service as a free book. And now that I've read it twice, would I read it again? Probably not. I
I
enjoyed it.
similarly read it years ago when I got it in a Loot Crate box. And I feel like overall, I remembered pretty much everything about the book. There were definitely like specifics that I didn't remember, but like in terms of like the overall plot, I definitely could have given you the like. It's like I couldn't have told you the D&D module that was part of the first, like to get the first key, but I could have told you there was a D&D module, like that kind of thing. So, but I really enjoyed it. I was happy to go back and reread it.
Nice. All right. Let's
Shanine, you have to
straight
answer
into
your
it.
own questions.
Yeah, did you have you read it?
I have not read it before. I watched the movie first, which we will get into later.
So did I.
I remembered the general concept, but not much of the specifics. Not that the specifics would have made a big difference, but yeah. So no, I haven't read it before. What was everyone's favorite part?
The Wade's purposely becoming a slave.
Yeah. I was going to say the same part. It mixes it up a little bit.
Mhm.
And by a little bit, I mean a lot. And gives a sense of like spy novel almost.
Mhm.
Literary wise, it's also like my least favorite part in terms of like the over layout of the narrative. Like it's the most my favorite like part of the story.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's also told the worst way.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll say I'm kind of the opposite on it, where it's like it's one of those things that like I really like where it is, and from like a literary standpoint, it breaking up the gates and kind of giving us a like in the real world, like Wade is pretty smart. Like it kind of gives us like a real life application of him, and so I kind of like that. And then, but overall, one of my favorite parts is kind of that moment right before they get to find every gate, find every key, like that build up where they're getting close. And then it's like, oh, and this person went and did this. Suddenly the scoreboard went off, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I really like how those moments feel like they, I think obviously not the first one because we're following Wade, but like the other ones all feel like a surprise to us as readers, but it still felt organic, and so that's probably one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. I mean, I started thinking about this by the time he essentially becomes a slave for IOI, that this book is essentially about obsession over something, and not just like, oh, I enjoy this thing, but I will go to any length possible to achieve this goal, to the point of shaving my head, locking myself in an apartment, and essentially risking selling my soul to accomplish this thing. And how in some ways by that point Wade was he was almost no different than IOI. It was just his intentions were a little different, but how he was going about it was almost similar to that of IOI. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of like I'm the good guy because I'm not those other people kind of thing. But
then you look at it from the outside and you're just like, are you though? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't trying to murder people in real life, so I
He
feel
was,
like
yeah.
there's
there is that at least.
There is that, but the level of obsession was very similar.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, yeah, the obsession was, but the reason for the obsession, you also have to factor in. His reason for obsession was he grew up in a world, and like the idea that this was an obtainable possible goal fueled his obsession, whereas IOI's obsession with it was we want to have full control of the Oasis more so than we already do.
Yep.
In chat, Chunk says, I liked how he got the extra life. I thought that was cool. That was one of my favorite references, going through, because it's such a video gamey thing.
Yeah.
Of like, did this random side quest and now I have an extra life, and I loved it.
I didn't know what it was for.
Mhm.
How convenient.
One of my favorite parts was the party at the Distracted Globe.
Yeah.
It just sounded so cool.
Yeah.
And kind of off of that, I really liked whenever Og showed up. Like anytime. Because he definitely has that like eccentric grandpa kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Of like, you don't know what's going to happen, but grandpa's here, so it's party time. Like things are going to go crazy. Like, are we going to light things on fire? Are we going to blow stuff up? Who knows? But grandpa's here. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, that was my other favorite part.
Yeah. The cool grandpa who like just lets you do whatever, but is secretly just like making sure you're safe. Just like, yeah, sure, go light fireworks off and all of that, but then he's hiding behind the shed with a bucket of water and like, you know.
Yeah, I think my favorite Og moment was him just appearing in the private chat room. I didn't see it coming at all. I was so immersed in it, and I was legitimately shocked. And I was like, what? This is amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I can just go anywhere. You know.
I'm the only one who can do it right now, but
yeah, and just that he's kind of like fangirling over the high five and like super pumped about them doing stuff.
And by the way, you guys want to come pretty much come stay with me
want to come to Oregon?
Want to come to Oregon?
Want to come to my house?
There's a jet waiting.
Yeah, his house that looks like Rivendell.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I do want to go to there.
Yes, please. Sign me up.
It's like, is this like an extended stay offer?
I mean, I feel like Wade could just buy the house now. Like, that's just the...
Yeah.
Because I know what
Work
I'd
from
do
home.
with my money.
right. Any least favorite parts?
He spent way too much time, like after the pseudo breakup with Artemis.
Yeah.
Just like she has a lot of points. She made so many great points, and it's true.
So many good points.
Stop it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's one of the biggest lulls in the book.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that I like well is how well Klein handles those lulls. Like I feel like he does a really good job with that storytelling of that downtime, of that, like we'll get into like biblical themes later, but how those will tie into those. But like that one specifically just kind of feels like, and stop everything. And then I go back and forth on this being one of my least favorite parts, but it's the fact that Wade is so good at every video game he plays.
Because he spent 5 years mastering them all.
Right. But like,
Again, my point about his level of obsession.
right. And I think that that's like, that does all tie in. And that's definitely a really good point. But it's just like one of those things that like, oh, I played this game and beat it once 3 years ago. Okay, I just got a perfect game of Pac-Man. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it took him a while.
Right. But it's just one of those that's like top level of all these things that countless people have spent a whole lot of time trying to do.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
I feel like that goes with like almost every character.
Yeah.
Like the amount of general knowledge that everyone has regarding this. And like not just like, oh, I have this notebook that, you know, I can reference and things, but like the amount they've actually committed to memory is
So I'll say for me, like the memory side doesn't bother me because like that's just memorizing facts. But it's like, but to the exact point you just said is that all of them all happen to be really good at all of these things.
yes.
And like our first try getting through, like we'll get to like the flick syncs later on, but like that they're all are succeeding in the flick syncs on their first try. Like that difficulty is way too low. Like, like that just seems like crazy that so many people could get through like all those movies just off of watching them before, a lot of times, but watching them before.
Right.
Yeah.
Like just like that the level of recall they have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the entire high five. Just
Yeah. They've
Like
memorized entire movie scripts or whatever.
Yeah.
and it's not like not just one. It's not like it I just know this one.
Right.
You know, it's like no one really has a specialized place. It's like they just all have this general knowledge.
Yeah.
And then, like, and it's like that. And I go back and forth with that being my least favorite part because there's also the side of me that was like 18-year-old Cameron in this world would be 100% into this.
Yeah.
Like this, that
Absolutely.
is where I would want to be a Gunter if I was in this world. Like
Absolutely.
I would want to be one of those people. And so like, that's kind of why I go back and forth. Like, cause it is such good world building that they do all have this knowledge, that they are all able to do it. Not kind of as the elite. Like we don't really ever find out about anyone significant clearing any of the gates that aren't the high five or IOI. Like there's no one that like sneaks up, climbs the ranks, any of that. And so like in that sense, like
well, I mean,
it is like they're the elite ones, but and like I said, I go back and forth on how much I like that.
right. Yeah. Because like I mean, Dido and them, they were the unknown ones that kind of came out of nowhere. And ultimately as a result of that ended up and as friends with the other three.
But even then, it's not. I mean, like Artemis. Well, I guess Artemis and H are well. Like Artemis is well known in Gunner circles. H is the most well known of the protagonists. But then like all the other four of the high five or three of the high five are just kind of like
there.
we're here and we figured it out.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I've said this before and sort of connects, but I do feel like too much time was spent on exposition in the beginning in a way that definitely felt slow. Like, I do feel like they could have gotten a lot of that information and world building across in ways that were more interesting, that could have showed like, oh, he's reading a blog post from Artemis
Mhm.
or written by Artemis, where it introduces the character of Artemis, but also gives you the same exposition that is just otherwise just Wade sitting there telling you or whatever. And I think that for me was like a bit, it was like my least favorite part overall, because he could have taken all of that 90 pages of exposition and done the exact same thing, tell us about the world of this world, or whatever his face is, the guy who
Holiday.
thank you. Like it could have been written in a way where like we're being told the history of Halliday through like a series of Artemis's blog posts that are being released, or through like a lecture, because Wade is in his senior year of high school and he's taking a advanced Oasis class, like a lecture on just reviewing the Halliday's life or whatever. So it was for me a bit of a like drag for the through the first part that could have been, okay, let's take all this information and use it to do more world building that is also interesting, because you can easily take all of that history and, oh, here's an ad for a new Oasis rig or whatever, and that would have, I personally think, added to the world of just, okay, I can put myself in there and picture going to class and learning these things and seeing exactly how Artemis and H, how well known they are in those circles, instead of just being told.
Yeah. All right. Any favorite characters?
I mean, Og. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like
Definitely
Og
not
is the
Wade.
Mrs. Watson of this book.
Yeah.
I would love I would love a book on what Og has been doing in the Oasis for all these years. Like has Og been behind the strings, or behind the scenes pulling strings all these years to help people out? Like,
yeah, well, because
like,
we
what
know
would-
he was eavesdropping on them
Right.
for a good chunk of time. Like,
Yeah. And presumably he's been keeping an eye on like people of interest for a while to see how people are doing with the quest. Like, he presumably knows what IOI is up to, and we see that even when he's invisible, he can interact with the world, like, 'cause he knocks over the books. So like, has Og been
yeah.
messing with people this whole
Yeah.
time?
I'd like to imagine that he probably is, but he's also probably specifically messing around with the Sixers, because he's like, I don't want you guys to get a hold of this. I'm just gonna mess around with your team because I can. Like, I'm gonna mess up all your random plans and come out of nowhere and just smack you across the head and disappear again.
Yeah, I definitely really agree. Of the main like 5, I would definitely pick Artemis, with the exception being her taste in men.
I agree.
Agreed.
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 I also really like Artemis. She's cool and she's Canadian. So
Touche.
Yeah. I wish we got to know Daido and Shoto a lot better, because like they kind of feel very tertiary until Shoto dies.
Yeah, it like in the overall narrative, yeah, they definitely are, and then it's more. Even then, they kind of serve as more of just a plot device to keep things moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And while I'm glad it wasn't them, I also would have liked to have seen. We're going on crazy. These aren't even questions on the thing, but like I would like to have seen an antagonistic main character that wasn't the Sixers.
Yeah.
Like
a
even
third
not,
party. Like I would have
yeah,
liked a
Yeah.
more
Yeah, so,
prominent
like,
role for
even-
like a clan.
yeah, so
that they
yeah.
mentioned.
So even like not even I say even like antagonistic in the sense of
Just like a competitor.
yeah, just like a
Yeah.
true competitor that isn't on the same team as the High Five.
Yeah.
So just something that like they are worried because if this other they don't know who this other person is, they don't want to interact with the High Five. So like there is this idea of the High Five. It is not a clan, but are on the same page.
They'd be a true
Yeah.
loner
Yeah.
in like because you do have the Sixers.
Mhm.
Hold on, my computer's dying. It's like the reason I say that this book stressed me out is because specifically of IOI and how big of a jerk they were throughout the entire book.
Mhm.
Like just as a large corporation. So like they were my least favorite character in the sense of like they were written well enough that like every single gate they would try and like put up a bubble or whatever, and they were just off killing people and trying to prevent other gunters from getting into the keys and such. They're just big jerks. But it
That's
would
also the thing. Like their jerkiness isn't like justifiable by any sense.
so having another sort of antagonistic character who's a loner, like you've got the big jerky corporation, but then throw in a lone wolf who's not with the High Five, who throws a wrench in things on occasion. Yeah,
Mhm.
the book would probably have to be redone almost completely
that would
or
yeah.
lengthened quite a bit to make that work. But
Like yeah, like I mean, like it would have made more like having a like maybe a large clan that's also competing would have probably helped toward the end of the book because you know the clans are only mentioned kind of in passing. Like they exist, they're a thing, and then they're not mentioned really until they need to be called upon and united against the big bad.
Mhm. Yeah.
But we've
I mean,
never
I do
actually
think,
interacted with a clan
Yeah.
or like come across like
yeah,
had any conflict with a clan. They're just
Yeah.
But why would they join us? It's,
I think trying to bring in a whole clan would get complicated because you've got the large group of the IOI who try and get Wade to join them. So you've already got one big group trying to go after the High Five in some capacity. Now it could.
well, I'm saying like clan doesn't need to be like directly antagonistic to the High Five.
You're right. Yeah.
Like they needed a bigger role, and they would have been a great
Yeah.
third competitor to the gates and the keys.
There is more
Like whereas
potential within that concept.
IOI is directly in conflict with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think as much as the High Five wasn't a clan,
Right.
they did a lot of working together for
Yeah.
not working
Yeah.
together.
They at least
Yeah.
very conveniently are able to help each other out, even if they don't directly help each other out.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's one of those.
At
things.
at the base, IOI is a clan. It's just a clan under the guise of a
Mhm.
corporation where the people in the clan are not actually going to really gain anything in the end.
Yes. All right. Any least favorite characters?
I don't like Wade.
Yeah.
I
feel like definitely Wade, and this kind of goes into what I said earlier. Definitely Wade up until the IOI thing. Like when he goes in and becomes an indentured worker for IOI. Because like up until then, it's just he's just not in. I don't want to say he's not an interesting character because I think like Wade is a really good main protagonist, but like he's a great main protagonist because he's so easy to be like, come on, Wade, like
Yeah.
like really
It's
that's what
easy
you're
to
gonna
yell
do?
at him for the
Exactly.
choices he makes. It's
That's a
easy to
perfect way to
yell
say
at
it.
him
But
for
doesn't
the
make him a
choices
likable
he
character.
makes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So like he's definitely not like top 3 favorite characters, but he's written in such a way that's still keeps you engaged
Mhm.
because you're like, okay, what stupid choice is Wade gonna make now?
Exactly.
Like, you just keep making stupid decisions that every 18-year-old would make in this scenario. And I'm curious to see what happens because of that. So
Right.
I'm going to keep reading.
In chat, we have Justin or Chunk the Hut mentioning IROC. Yeah, but IROC's only purpose was to kind of really solidify IOI as the big bad.
Because he really only showed up in that first third of the book.
Right, and then he
just sort of disappears.
Yeah.
Like he's not really mentioned after IOI is solidified as the big bad.
Yeah, he just serves as kind of the reveal of like, or giving IOI the tools to identify Wade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, he is an obnoxious character.
And I mean, I'm definitely glad he didn't show up more.
Yeah.
But like, and I definitely think that there is another version of this story where IROC is that antagonist that's not part of the high five, and it's just miserable. Like it's like because that like IROC is that great example of like that someone like pretending to be a part of a group.
Yeah.
And then
who everyone knows you're not really part of this
Yeah.
group.
So I
Just-
mean,
And,
like, maybe it would have been more of an interesting end if like IROC showed up somewhere.
Yeah.
And just kind of ruin things again.
just every gate IROC ruins something.
Yeah. Like I probably wouldn't have minded that. Well, I mean, I don't know. But yeah, IROC was just a plot device. Obnoxious one, but necessary, I guess, in a sense. I don't know.
Okay, what did you guys think of the narrator?
We already talked about Wade.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Any different feelings about him as the narrator, just as
he
opposed to the main
keeps you
character, though?
engaged because you just want to yell at him for the choices he makes.
And like back to my original point, like it wasn't bad, but like one, as I mentioned, like my favorite part is Wade entering the indentured program with IOI. It's more so like the twist that like because he's the narrator and he's telling this is like where he breaks from just the kind of this chronicles and like at the end, oh, by the way, this was all planned by me.
Mm-hmm. I had to accelerate my plan.
Yeah.
Like instead of mentioning that this was kind of an upcoming plan and thing here and there, I was just like, that's kind of a gap in the way you've been telling the story just for the payoff of the twist. But I like Wade as a narrator more than I like him as a character.
Mhm.
I agree. And I think that like I mean, I really like the trope at from the very beginning where it's like many people have tried to write about what happened, but I'm going to give you the real account. And then it's so cheesy and I just love it. Like that's one of my favorite again, it's good world building because it is like it sets you off right away that this is a major event.
Yeah.
Right.
But people would write about, would talk about this, would be all public knowledge, would be well known. And so it's here's me trying to set out to tell the true account of what occurred.
Also, but also not realizing the irony of that type of statement. That
Yeah.
somehow your perspective, just because you were present, that somehow your experience as a result isn't biased as a result of those experiences.
Although I will say with how blunt Wade is about himself, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean it's
I definitely feel like it's a
believable
pretty as far as it goes. It's there are definitely things I would have left out if I was the narrator in Wade's situation, but.
Any other point of view that you would have wanted to have heard the story from?
You need to answer your own questions first.
I honestly didn't hate Wade as a character, and I did enjoy him as a narrator. I think he was very enthusiastic about the topic and everything he was conveying, and it got me excited about the story, and it was good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He, in a sense, I mean, maybe reason why I don't like him at times is because I also that he's the kind of geek I strive to be sometimes.
That's fair.
But I guess the new question: what perspective would you like to read about? I think Artie's, just because, in general, I think her perspective from a narrative standpoint would be great because she is the first to actually find the location. And then, hearing about her struggle for the 5 weeks.
And she has her head on straight.
Yeah. But, that struggle of 5 weeks and then this idiot coming out of nowhere claiming it, and then also just that perspective of that level-headedness in this relationship with him and being
yeah,
you don't know me, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And that breakup, and then going on to actually competitively kind of set the pace for the act, because she is ultimately the pace setter throughout the rest up through the second gate and then kind of IOA. So I think hearing about her, what she's been up to throughout that would be maybe a better perspective for what I'd like to see.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Artie would be a great alternative narrator for this entire story. As well, I would love either as a narrator for this or some kind of spinoff would be, again, Og, who's just has absolutely no involvement other than just a history with Halliday, who's just floating around watching people from a distance. I can see a couple of short stories from Og's perspective being written that take place during the competition or contest of him just floating around and goofing off, and just watching people, and doing whatever it was he was doing. That's something I would enjoy to see, is just a couple of, because he has these capabilities that no one else in the Oasis has, even if they're just short stories. Seeing something from Og that takes place during this time frame of his thoughts and perceptions of the goings on.
Yeah. And I would also like to see Og try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because even though he can't win, I would love to see Og oh, so if I go to Ludus, I can find this. Oh, look, here it is. That kind of thing, as because he would
I'm
have
sure
to wait.
he figured it out pretty. I'm sure he had some sort of, because he knew Halliday well enough that he probably would have, if he did, or assuming he did, he probably would have figured it out relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things, even if he couldn't win.
Because I think for him, like, because he would only know like whatever riddle was publicly known at the time. And so like I think it'd be super cool to see him like piecing together with his knowledge of Halliday and trying to like almost like getting like a flashback style story where it's him interacting with Halliday at these moments or finding out about how Halliday likes this, like playing D&D with Halliday, and like they ran Tomb of Horrors and like that kind of thing. I think that would have been a really interesting like short stories to what you were saying, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Like
for me,
for the story as it is, like if it was just his perspective for the story as it is, the book would be a lot shorter.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was thinking about
Which
short
would be fun.
stories.
Well, because it'd be nice to see his perspective as like, oh, someone finally did something after
Yeah,
5 years. Like,
yeah.
he's just chilling. I'll don my robes again, or
Because
let me get back in the
would
game.
it would work
Yeah.
in short stories. Like even if it ends up being like 2 or 3 short stories,
Yeah,
like
I'd be
it
down
would
for
still work with that format of just finally took you long enough.
It's like, I just picture him like drinking his tea one day, and the alerts start coming in. And he's like, "Oh,
The
and
scoreboard
he's like,
alarm
I gotta
goes
go
off."
log in. I gotta go see who these people are."
I'm ready for this. Took him long enough. Took him 5 years.
Kind of excitement is like, and then like kind of just spying on these people. He's like, I like these kids.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like that growing of fondness just from a distance, and then
Yeah.
his ultimate introduction with him. I think it'd be great short stories. I agree. for sure.
Absolutely.
In terms of like the narrative as presented, I think it would be interesting to see like the same events recounted from IOI's perspective. Like I think it'd be interesting to see them like tell the stories of, oh, we got beat again by these kids, like that kind of thing, and to
It's like,
kind
oh,
of
I just
see-
want to murder them, literally.
yeah, literally,
Yeah.
but like kind of get to see that side of it and see them like recount the events in terms of close to the narrative, like keeping it close to what it is.
Like, do
Or
you actually
Artemis,
like
as
what?
y'all
Do you
said earlier.
want Sorrento's perception or just kind of company perception?
Maybe a little bit of both. Either Sorrento or somebody that like, actually no, not Sorrento. I would want someone that's like Sorrento's number 2.
Yeah.
So like that way we could still get a unbiased account of Sorrento, as
Right.
well as like have another person telling the story of the high five. But yeah. What about you, Shanine?
Yeah, I agree with Chris that Artemis's point of view would be interesting. Yeah. Okay. Did you find the world and the characters believable?
There was not enough giant squid,
Not enough giant squid.
True.
so it was completely unbelievable.
I mean, I did talk about this a little bit at the beginning, but the one thing that I found rather unbelievable was the lack of restrictions for the contest. Like I mean, it makes sense for Halliday's personality just because he's a bit of a hermit, but I think the restrictions were none of the stakeholders or immediate family of like the heads of the company could partake, which is why Og couldn't win potentially. But beyond that, there was like no restrictions, which was part of why IOI was able to be this huge threatening source of evil, if you will. Like there was no restriction of, oh, a large company can't be a winner of this, or like meeting these certain criteria would like disqualify you. Which was definitely a bit unbelievable for me in the sense of, well, if you're going to set up a contest and whoever wins is going to gain your inheritance and of this $1 billion company, you would think that there would be at least a few more restrictions in place for that kind of that level of risk, essentially.
For me, I would say that technologically, I think this is feasible. Um, in a sense that, like, I think technology is going to the point where like things possibly can exist like this. To the scale, though, definitely not.
At least not anytime soon.
Not in the year they're projecting. I don't think
No,
this is going to exist
no,
in the next
not
27
for-
years.
No.
Especially like without general like without maintenance. Like this world exists on its own, like as kind of a collaborative thing. And I don't think that would ever kind of exist. In a sense, especially with the way they portray the world as this capitalistic kind of dystopia. Just
It does
because
seem like the Oasis is one of the first things you would cut.
right.
Like in a world with a giant energy crisis, like it does seem like the giant always online simulation that requires tons of servers and like all that kind of stuff and all this gear would be a pretty like easy thing to cut to save a lot of energy.
Right. And it's not even necessarily because like I believe that possibly that energy efficiency, that this like keeping people from traveling and having a place that ultimately as an alternative like work aspect, essentially this is your office, you know, like you have virtual aspects to this, that keeping this online might not be the first thing you cut, but the scale that this thing exists in just would never exist in a capitalist world where that type of collaboration to create something like this that people have like where you'd have that access wouldn't exist. Also the fact that Canada exists as part of like this energy crisis and is just as dystopian as the US, also kind of unbelievable. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, also like because if something like this did exist for free, like I feel like a lot of social issues could ultimately be solved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but
well, we are in some respects seeing in the world that we live in right now, we are seeing some of the benefits of the technology we have right now because we're living in a pandemic. And so when COVID started, we're seeing the boom of Zoom, if you will. So, but to the extent that that world crisis correlates with the technology that they have in that world, like we adapted with COVID to what was needed, which was video conferencing. But again, you would think that with an energy crisis, even if the extensiveness, the extent to which the technology exists in the book were actually real, you would think that they would still cut it back to the bare minimum of what they would need in order to maintain or cushion some of the blow of an energy crisis.
Mm-hmm. I'll say all of this to me is it's definitely believable in that like near enough future, like that kind of thing of like we're not going like full cyberpunk, like, but like, but it's just far enough ahead that it's like we could see how social media and MMOs would evolve into this thing. We can see how this energy crisis that exists in that world would cause over reliance on the one thing that is like a good escape at, like in that, like we can, like all of that seems believable enough to me. Again, in that fantasy style world, but
Yeah, I think with it being a dystopian world and mostly taking place in virtual reality, it was believable enough.
yeah, there was nothing that like really broke its own rules, and I thought that was good.
Yeah.
And again, granted, it all takes place in a simulation, so the worlds are
Or
pretty,
literally
like
have their own rules.
right. And so there is like that side of it, but like there was never anything that was like, even like the real world side of it, there was never anything that was like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
it seemed believable within its own story.
Yeah. Okay. Any favorite quotes?
So I'll talk about this when we get into biblical themes a bit more, but it's at the very end. We have congratulations, you've reached the end. Ready, player one. And so I just love that. And like, I also really love that, like, it's also kind of like not the end. Like, it's one of those if it's like, you've reached the end, now solve this other puzzle. Good luck. But I really like that. Just, and again, it'll tie in with when we get to biblical themes, but I think that that's such a good, like, tie into the Oasis login. That like you can definitely see that it's like that it's Halliday looking at, okay, everybody's going to be familiar with this from when they log in, and here we're going to tie it back in to the end of the quest.
I mean,
So-
there. Oh, go for it.
Go.
Okay. There wasn't really any specific moment that stood out to me in terms of quote, but one that did get me was right when they're entering the third gate. It's just the chapter ends with, and then we all died. Like just this sentence with 5 words or whatever, and then we all died. Period. That's it. Just straight to the point of, okay, grand heroic thing. We're pretty much defeating the bad guys, and we've entered the third gate, and then everyone dies before we accomplish the thing. So it was a funny moment that I enjoyed.
So one of my like favorite parts that kind of just sets up Artemis's and Wade's relationship in a sense, but also just it's a good call out on Wade. Was in their conversation. You don't live in the real world, Z. From what you've told me, I don't think you ever have. You're like me. You live inside this illusion. She gestures to our virtual surroundings. You can't possibly know what real love is. And it part of it is it points out kind of how broken Wade is as a character in general, just with his upbringing, what he's lost. He's never actually, like, his life has been kind of revolving around Halliday as this weird father figure that he's never met, but also that, you know, he latches on to the first kind of connection he has with a person, and he latches on way too strongly.
Yeah. In relation to reality, one of my favorite quotes is Halliday in the simulation after Wade wins, saying, "I was afraid for all of my life, right up until I knew it was ending. That was when I realized, as terrifying and painful as reality can be, it's also the only place where you can find true happiness, because reality is real."
Yep.
Yeah.
In chat, Chunk says, going outside is highly overrated.
Yeah.
Especially in the winter. I don't get skiers and snowboarders. They don't make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that quote that Chunk said is from Anorak's Almanac, and I like the other one from Anorak's Almanac as well. Being human totally sucks most of the time. Video games are the only thing that make life bearable.
That makes me think I would love a companion of what is in the almanac. Like an
Yeah.
actual
Like someone just actually write out the almanac.
yeah, like an
Yeah.
in-world, like, because like we get like this is referenced so many times in the almanac. Like now, like I'm not a writer, but that seems like either a ton of fun to try to write or really awful to try to write. But like where you're having to hit like these very specific quotas of I can only mention this thing this many times, and I have to mention it exactly that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I would love to see that, like, what is this rambling thing, and what exactly does it look like? And so I think that would be really cool, especially to see it not printed, but like written in like either handwriting or like different fonts, like that kind of thing for like different days, almost like a journal kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything in the book that surprised you?
Infiltrating IOI definitely like was, I mean, getting to the point was surprising, but then pretty much from the start of that point of, oh, suddenly these soldiers are coming to arrest me for my debt or whatever. I was like, okay, so like this is part of this plan. But like the initial part of it was a bit of a surprise, but then I caught on pretty quickly that it was all intentional.
Yeah, and that's like, as I mentioned, that was just like the weird part of the narrative is like he never mentioned his
Yeah.
plan before
Yeah.
until after it's like, oh, there's actually this plan here. It's like, okay. Cool story, bro.
The first time I read it, I think the biggest surprise is what Emma had just referenced when all the characters die at the third gate.
Yeah.
Like, and because like that's one of those things that like is so like it's set up so well earlier in the book of like there's this thing, like there's these artifacts and they're like one time like or like limited use and they're super powerful.
Yeah.
Who knows what all there could be? And this one time there's this tablet and then this bomb and then like they both come up to be plot points later on.
Yeah.
And stuff like
I mean,
that.
at the same time, that like at least for me reading it is like, okay. I mean, why are you providing all this detail about this? It's like this is obviously going to play a role later on to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
like
know.
that's just good storytelling.
Yeah.
Like if you show the gun
Yeah.
in the first act, you got to fire it by the end. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more so like how much detail. It's like okay, if he just gave a general synopsis, it's like, yeah, this thing will kill everyone, but he's like, everyone, like there is no way to avoid it. Blah blah. Like how much he went into explaining this artifact. Just like, okay,
Yeah.
so like kind of at like this big last battle, I figured it was going to be used. But I guess I was more surprised of that it was used, that IOI ultimately did have it. And they would end up being the ones to use it. I thought it was going to be used as a device that someone ultimately had and came with, and it was going to be used kind of in the sense the way that IOI did use it, but it was going to be used by a third party or someone within the party ultimately. I thought maybe Og maybe had it.
Yeah.
You know, as it was progressing, but like the use of it didn't surprise me.
Yeah,
That
I think with all the description of stuff, I like in that moment realized it would come back up, but then by the time that it actually did, I'd
Yeah.
forgotten about it. So it's still like, what?
Yeah,
and to me, it's
same
kind of
here.
like Og showing up. It's
Yeah.
that like clearly when the books get knocked over,
something's
like something's
Yeah.
up
that
with
maybe
that.
that was like my biggest surprise,
Yeah.
that it turned out to be
And-
it was Og.
And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and so like it's one of those where it's like, but there's just enough time between when that happens and when the reveal happens, that it's like, oh yeah, that was set up earlier.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the big surprise for me, like for that part where, and then we all died. When that happened, the first thing that went through my head was, why would Halliday set up the third gate to kill everyone if the point of the contest is to win his inheritance? Like, I thought that the third gate killed the 3 people who walked into it. Like, that was just part of the thing, and it would transport them to whatever like the other gates had done.
Not gonna lie.
But,
If I
like,
created a contest like this, one of two things would happen. Is that ultimately that would be the end result, and there is no actual Easter egg.
Yeah, just suckers.
Just for
you
that.
went through all
Assassin's
this
Creed 1.
effort,
That's your
and
yeah.
I'm just gonna kill you all because you're overpowered or whatever.
Or
But
Portal. It's like it's just a lie. It's like there was actually
lies.
nothing. But look at how much time you guys spent trying to solve this,
Yeah.
just for the sheer chaos.
Talk about causing trust issues, though.
Yeah, Viroth in chat says that's foreboding coming from your DM.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, we know.
Yeah. He's literally talked about killing us every time we've talked about D&D. So
Time to kill some PCs.
we've accepted our fate.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Shokar Jr. to show up.
This character seems oddly familiar.
You guys wrote your backgrounds. Just remember that. What I did with it, that's my choice.
I will say, I enjoyed being raised by tortoises.
Turtles, yes. You gotta write this.
Portals.
Turtles. But they are tortoise race. Yep.
Okay. Did you notice any biblical / theological themes?
So I got 2. So the first one like ties in with the quote, and there's a very clear like heaven imagery, like of when like going through the third gate. It's in the sky, like
Crystal.
you get through
Crystal.
Yeah, there's the well done, my faithful servant, like that kind of thing with that final message. And you very much in this world have like idolized Halliday and idolized the things that he was interested in. So there is definitely that very like that side of it. And then the other one I think goes hand in hand, and that's the ideas of hope and purpose. That like you have all these people in a world with very little hope, and so the only thing that they have to put their hope in is winning this quest, or even just participating, like just being a part of something. And so like there's that kind of thing, and you even get the reference with Wade's downstairs neighbor. Like it's crazy to him that she would go to church, but he so idolizes this contest and all these things, and so that's where he puts his hope and his purpose.
Early in the book, there is like it's weird, kind of misplaced, but kind of also important. Like where when he's talking, he goes on this rant about God.
Oh, I remember that.
And
Yeah.
Santa Claus.
Like the first chapter or something.
It's all BS and all these things, while not realizing that ultimately he has created like Halliday in the Oasis is your god. You've set him up
He
as
has replaced
this creator
God with Halliday.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And kind of how ultimately that kind of begins to unravel in a sense as he learns more about Halliday. And in this world, but yeah, it's just to me like that initial part is like, what is the point of this rant? But it does kind of that irony that you say here and deny a creator for the physical while creating an idol in this virtual realm. And yeah, and as Justin points out, that essentially your almanac, Anorak's almanac, becomes your holy book.
Mm-hmm. Right, and they even reference it like that within the narrative.
Yeah.
Like they reference it like on page whatever he talks about this, or he meant like that kind of thing.
Except for there is an actual code in the almanac. Sorry guys, there is no Bible code.
The Da Vinci Code.
The Da Vinci Code. That's how I'm going to interpret and find out when the last days are.
Well, it's like in the New Testament, you do have it walks through Jesus's life, and then there is that sort of he's going to return and sort of end of days portion. Whereas with the almanac, it does sort of have an Old Testament historical, but there isn't that aspect of sort of future. Here's what's gonna happen in the future, because it's all the purpose of the almanac is to assist in winning the contest, and the contest is the end goal. Like there's no accomplishment beyond that, whereas with the Bible it's more of it's that relationship with God where there's the heaven that we're striving to end up in and have eternal life. I'm not very good at theology, but I don't know. I feel like there is also that aspect of dead end versus eternity.
Mm-hmm.
That winning the contest is very dead end in some aspects, even though it does provide a new life for whoever wins. Like once the contest is won, no one else can win it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I kept coming back to the themes of reality and just how so many of the people in the Oasis treat the Oasis as their real life. But just how there still isn't the fullness of a real life in the Oasis. Like it feels real, but it's not reality. And it just reminded me of John 10:10, where Jesus says, "I've come to give you life and life to the full."
Mm-hmm.
And just so like we can experience this reality, or we can experience reality with Jesus that is life to the full and joy and relationship and just, yeah, full reality instead of just something that feels real.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Those high-end haptic suits, man. One day.
Okay, anything else that stood out to you before we get to the fun questions?
Mm-hmm. Well, not like strictly like a biblical or theological theme. One of the big themes of the book that I like is the idea of like community and like finding your people. Like you have Wade for 5 years, and I mean even most of the high five that have been like spending years of their lives devoted to this thing, mostly alone. Like, and then you have this moment where they all start to come together as this group of people that share both a purpose but also share like interests and community, and that idea of like finding your people I think is really cool.
I found my
Yeah.
people.
What can I say except you're welcome?
One of my kiddos from the job I no longer work at love that song. Loves that song. So whenever I hear it, I think of her. So
Okay. So I have been looking forward to talking about this question with a special shout out to Chunk the Hut. How does it compare with the movie, and what differences did you like or dislike?
All of it.
yeah. So the movie, like you, Shanine, I saw the movie before I read the book. And I saw the movie several years ago on a plane ride going somewhere. I don't remember. And as a standalone, like watching the movie outside of the context of the book before I ever read the book, it's pretty decent. Like, it's not a terrible movie, but in the context of the book, it does a fine job of taking the concept and putting it on the screen. But it, for me, I rewatched it recently, admittedly. It didn't feel like it kept the spirit of the book.
It's not even the
Like
same
it-
story.
it's the same story concept, whatever, but it didn't really keep the like it the stuff that they changed for the movie removed the spirit from the book, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah, I'm glad I watched the movie first, just because like I
Yeah.
got to enjoy it as a movie, and I was like, oh, that was pretty
Yeah.
fun. And then I read the book and was like,
Wait,
this
what?
is not the same.
No.
What just happened? What is this?
Yeah.
Like I can, from a movie perspective, I can see why they made the decisions they did.
Yeah.
Just because the time progression in the book is different. There's like,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a
obviously,
lot the book is a lot slower in terms of time
It's like
than
even
the
from
movie.
the finding of the first key to the end is like years.
Yeah.
A
At least a year and a half.
possibly 2,
Yeah.
depending
Because
on.
I think it's a good 6 months between
Yeah.
the first key and the second key.
Mhm.
Whereas in the movie, it's like maybe a month.
Yeah, and they opted to eliminate and make it more, I guess, of a kind of CG emphasis, so making it more action based and things like that for the movie. So I understand the decisions.
Yeah.
But it just irritates me when you do that with something and titling it after the book instead of just creating, like, doing what you did, create your own thing with concepts from the book.
Yeah. Like they kept a lot of the major scenes, or like, I don't really want to say plot points, but like in the movie they go to the dance club. But they go to the dance club because Artemis knows about it, not because it's Og's birthday party and it's this whole thing. Like, some of the changes they did make, kind of like what you were just saying, Chris, they should have like taken it and made it creatively their own. And if they're going to make notable differences while still keeping some of the points, just make it completely different and make it something that can add to the story rather than just eh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like the dance club scene in the book a lot better than in
Yeah.
the movie, which is weird because it seems like it would have been better to be able to see it.
Mhm.
But yeah, just imagining it in the book, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I
And-
think with the way they describe it in the book, also because you get that awkwardness that Wade's experiencing, for one, not knowing how to dance,
Yeah.
and like having to activate these automated sequences, and kind of like what that interaction would actually be like instead of this just portraying it.
So I'm going to post a link in our Discord. I've never seen the movie. And so my only view of the movie are the trailers, then the pitch meeting that Screen Rant did. And so I posted a link to it in our Discord. People can go check it out after we finish recording or after they watch this. But that is my only impression of it. I was playing a game with some people the other night, Chunk and Caleb from Mountain Nerds. And we're kind of talking about, like, for me, it was one of those movies that, like, when it came out, Deanna and I were dating and she didn't like it. And so I just never went to see it. And then I just never got around to seeing it. And then, like, it's one of those that, like, I could definitely see myself watching on an airplane, but because of all the differences that exist between them, it's just one of those that, again, going back exactly to what y'all said earlier, that, like, it just doesn't seem like it's the same thing.
Just don't think of it as a Ready Player One movie.
Right.
Just think of it as like a AI, like a virtual world movie. Boom.
Yeah. And so kind of like because of all of those, it's just one that, like, I've just never had the intention to go see, and I'll probably watch it at some point.
It's on Hulu.
I'm not in a hurry.
Cameron, like I told you in Discord a while ago, the movie feels like Tron, but with, I don't remember what I said, but it basically feels like Tron, but with a monetary value at the end of it. And real world stakes.
Something that just wasn't portrayed in the movie was any actual, like, relationship development or anything like that. It's just these guys know each other. Like, there's no actual introductions. But I mean, obviously the gates aren't anything like they are in the book.
No, not at all.
And
which
Wade
was a disappointment for me personally. I don't know if that was the case for
and it completely undermines
but
Wade's struggle, like, early on. You know, where he's doesn't come from any kind of affluence. You know, like, the only reason why he has gear is because he managed to enroll in the school where it's provided.
Yeah.
And things like that, and it just portrays him as like it doesn't develop the world that's in the book. That Oasis was created. You go to school in Oasis, and that all these things have been monetized. That
where the book spent too much time on world building, the movie spent too little time on building the world. So the book too much, or at least in a too flat a way, but the movie spent too little time doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, the movie felt very, like, modern video game virtual reality. Lots of cars.
Lots of cars.
And
again, it feels like Tron.
So many
Whereas,
cars.
Like, the only racing game really mentioned in the book is Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, it's not, like, relevant.
Right.
No.
Right. It's like a passing comment.
And then like, again, like, I don't know the movie, but, like, then the DeLorean. Like, Wade drives the DeLorean. Like, that's really the only other, like, car vehicle mentioned in the book.
Yeah, but there's, like, 2 car challenges in the movie that I remember anyways. And that's not in the book at all. Like, why couldn't we have seen, like, a dungeon and things like that?
That would have been so much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Right?
And some of those more classical, like, one of the, like, most important details of the entire storyline is that Halliday loves 80s stuff and 80s geekdom.
And, like, his intro to geek, like, nerd culture is D&D.
Yeah, and it's a lot of that is heavily based on D&D and mazes and
puzzles
the
and Easter eggs.
Like, it's all of these things that are just not modern day Grand Theft Auto or whatever. It's a completely different genre of geekdom, if you will, or nerdiness. Like, it's just a different part of the world completely. So the all of the car stuff did not fit well for me. Because it was like that just sort of ruins the point of the Halliday wouldn't have made one of the gates into a car race thing, because that's not what he was interested in. He was interested in whining dogs in the background of Shanine's office or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna go let him out.
No, don't.
Oh, and he's so cute.
Kind of keeping the conversation going. Chuck, that does indicate the movie did feel rushed, and I agree.
Yeah.
Like I feel like this is definitely something where they could have done like more of a three-part miniseries, like one
Yeah,
for
I can see
each
that.
gate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, done it like almost like the Sherlock BBC.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it's like 3 hour and a half, like
Yeah.
not movies, but like episodes.
Yeah.
And like
That
and
are
that's
telling
the
this complete story.
yeah.
And because I think there's enough detail in the books that you can definitely have done something like that and just split it up and made more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you could have a spin-off that's just a whole
Og.
bunch of short films on Og
Yes.
that are just like you make them as like teasers for the next episode or whatever, like of just Og running around messing with people. Guys, when I graduate, when I have my degree, I'm gonna revamp this and make it so much better. I don't
And
know.
it's just going to get into fan films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Like it.
I'm gonna become the next Felicia Day, but for actually making this stuff instead of acting, because I can't act worth a dime.
And part of me, like in the like movie to the book, like even like the final battle was so much more compelling in the book.
So much more compelling.
Like I wanted to see all these ships and everything flying around, Mecha Godzilla and Ultraman. I want to see that showdown, but I mean,
The
also
licensing issues, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's also possibly another big reason why they revamped the story as much as they did is because
Yeah.
of licensing issues. So I mean, as I mentioned, I understand the changes. I just think I would have scrapped the project if I couldn't make what I needed to make.
Yeah.
Probably would have been a
This,
better idea.
I mean, yeah, this book, it for me definitely feels like one of those storylines and concepts that if it can't be done right, I probably wouldn't do. Like it I mean, it makes me think of Good Omens, because they didn't want Good Omens to be made into anything if it wasn't going to be done almost in to the note or to the letter of the book. Like they wanted it to be done right or not at all. And the only reason it eventually got made into a show was because they basically took the entire script of the book and did not stray from it for an instant. And this Ready Player One feels like one of those where if it's kind of like that, where if you're going to do it and have it, sure, you're probably going to have licensing issues given everything that's mentioned in it, but that's an opportunity to get creative and get around those in a way that still stays true to the story.
They could have just made it more humorous and did like the anime thing and just did the whole legally distinct, similar but legally distinct.
Yeah. Similar, but not the same. Yeah.
It's McWonald's, not McDonald's. We're good. It's Hundum, not Gundam.
Okay. Any other movie gripes?
I have a gripe for the book. And my gripe is the fact that the portals are called Stargates, and they don't ever actually explain that reference. And my gripe is with that because I am a diehard Stargate fan, even though it's typically just a bad TV show. And for those of you who don't know, he did not come up with the term Stargate. Our friendly neighborhood MacGyver stars in Stargate, where it's just a bunch of army dudes going to other planets through a giant portal and fighting off evil snakes who crawl into your head. And my gripe is that they don't explain it because it's a late 90s, early 2000s bad science fiction show that would absolutely be explained in this book.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my gripe.
I would agree with that grape in the sense that they explain way too many other references.
Yeah. Like
In
they
too
say
much
that
detail.
the transporter things for whatever look like the Doctor Who TARDIS. But then they don't explain that the ship transporter that's called the Stargate is a reference to a show. Like it's anyway. For all the references in the book, that was one that flopped. Okay. There's my gripe.
Okay. Speaking of references, we get a list of Halliday's favorite authors and several movies and directors and so many other things that he loves. And there were definitely some authors and directors in those lists that I loved. So, what author, movie, music, etc. do you see on someone's favorites list and immediately know that you are probably going to get along great with them?
Tolkien.
So Avatar is the obvious one for me. That like if somebody's into Avatar: The Last Airbender, like we're probably going to be friends. I feel like Magic the Gathering is another one, but that's like 50-50. Because it's like where are you at in like are we having fun or are we like where are we at?
It's like you have to think about the fandom and like
Right.
there's a portion of this fandom that's pretty toxic. Which part are you part of?
I mean, every fandom has a
Right.
group that's toxic.
That's why I say probably, not
I was
definitely.
noting
I have yet
Star
to run into a
Wars.
toxic
Like,
Tolkien fan. Just throwing that out there.
well, it's true, but
Right?
I mean, the one that
Right?
does come to mind for me is Star Wars, and
Yeah.
like you see not everyone in that fandom is toxic, but
We made our
it's-
stance on the Star Wars fandom well known.
Yeah.
yeah, which is definitely one of those things that has held me back from Star Wars stuff in general. Is just how toxic it can be. But anyway, I mean, Doctor Who for me, just anything related to Doctor Who, I'm going to be like, if I were in Wade's position, I would own a TARDIS 100%, and it's not the DeLorean. I would travel around in a TARDIS, absolutely, and like those people would be my people because it's just my personality in general is that sort of enthusiastic. I'm going to run around to different planets and just save them from evil. So, like those would be the people I would befriend who would also just be the Doctor Who people who don't think I've ever met anyone in person who like Doctor Who was majorly toxic. There are a couple of people I know who are like, meh, okay, maybe you could be a little egotistical, if you will. But anyway.
I'll throw like mech animes on my list. Granted, like I'm not the best versed, but I think I'd get along with anyone that's interested in like Gundams or Voltron or anything like that. Or that's just as excited that Japan has built a moving life-size Gundam as a art project. Just nerd out all the time with them. Yep.
Yeah, I'm also gonna say Doctor Who. As far as authors go, like Neil Gaiman and C.S. Lewis.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll also
Okay.
throw like MCU on there because it's like at least then, like even if we're not going to be like great friends, like we're gonna get along because we can just talk about every movie in the MCU, like that kind of thing.
I find that
It-
exhausting, though.
Right, but I don't. So it's because I'm an extrovert, Chris. So
Touche.
like,
Okay. What would be on your personal vid feed channel?
Classic Who episodes. Because not enough people have seen Classic Who, and that's great. It's what I put on when I need something to watch in the background while I'm doing stuff. Because it's super, it's low budget, cheesy, whatever. And it's fun to make fun of. So I would just stream Classic Who 24/7 so that people can have a channel where it's just classic stuff to make fun of.
I put on a ton of classic kung fu movies.
I feel like mine would be a lot like my normal like viewing habits, where like when in doubt, there's a sitcom on. And then all the other times it's like MCU marathon or it's
We should mention like one of 3 sitcoms.
I mean, there's more than 3, but like,
It's like, okay, 4. Fine,
um,
Cameron.
so yeah, so like there's those, then there would be like, I don't know, I probably a lot of sci-fi stuff of just like, here's Star Wars, here's all these space things, like,
You guys want a fun fact?
yes.
Classic Who was so low budget, they didn't have enough Daleks at one point that they used a whole bunch of cardboard cutouts. And I absolutely love it. Like, you can tell they're cardboard cutouts, but they're just like, we don't have enough money, so we're gonna go cheap and put them on cardboard. And
Probably
set them in
also
the background.
periodically air Sam Neill's Merlin series. Because I think we forget about that too much, and that is a wonderful Merlin adaptation.
I think mine would be similar to yours, Cameron, just with like what I normally watch. There'd be like a good amount of sci-fi and fantasy, probably a lot of The Office. Be like 50-50 The Office and other things.
I'll tune in for the other.
Okay. So in this kind of random throwaway part in the middle of the book, we find out that the president and vice president of the Oasis User Council are Cory Doctorow and Will Wheaton. Who would you elect as the Geek presidents?
It's got to be Stephen Colbert.
Yeah. Honestly, probably not Will Wheaton.
I mean, not only would I vote him the Geek president, I vote Colbert the real president.
Yeah, that too.
There'd be a conflict there.
Yeah. I could also see like pretty much anyone involved with like the Critical Role crowd.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like, they just all seem like people that have a good head on their shoulders. And
Yeah.
so like if I was to roll, like I'm gonna say this, like if I was to roll the dice with someone, pun definitely not intended. That if I had to just pick someone at random, I feel like picking one of like any of them would be fine.
Yeah.
I would vote for Tom Holland just for the spoilers.
There are
Yes.
aliens,
It'd be the
everyone.
most transparent government ever.
Absolutely.
Just what I want out of my
Definitely.
government. Transparency. And that's what we're going to get with Tom.
Yeah, I think I'd also be down for like John or Hank Green.
Mhm.
Yes.
Good choices.
Because then you have like this actual science side of nerdiness. I'd go with Hank
If
personally.
we're going
but
nerdy, I would definitely vote for Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
True, true.
If anyone has spent no time on Hank Green's TikTok account page, I suggest you go do it because it is fabulous and he spends a lot of time telling you to not eat things. And it is one of my favorite things ever.
My favorite thing is also like when it goes in. I was not expecting to make to be consistent on TikTok, and now it's his primary thing.
Yeah.
Like he'll show his like messages like I will not become a TikTok star. Now he's big, and also water is lava.
Water is lava.
Ice is a
Ice
rock.
Ice is rock.
In chat, Varoth says Ursula K. Le Guin. The last name is Guin, and so
Who that is?
it's she is an American author best known for her
Oh.
works in speculative fiction, including science fiction works set in the Hainish universe and the Earthsea fantasy series.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Um,
Sorry.
A lot
in
of
chat,
I think
Chunk says Colin Moriarty and Greg Miller.
yeah, Le Guin I think is also a lot of the Miyazaki films are based on her works.
I see.
Also, if he's still alive, obviously Stanley.
Guys, our washing machine is making a weird noise. I'm concerned.
Did you overload it?
Probably fine.
I didn't do anything. It's not my load. Guys, our washing machine is making a weird noise.
Okay, on to Flick Syncs, which are games that allowed people to play a leading role in one of their favorite old movies or TV series. So, what movie would you love to be in? And what movie could you act in successfully?
It's my response to both is Finding Nemo because I memorized the entire script when I was 10 years old. So I could go through that successfully. So that is my response and answer. I would also like things like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, but I would
trying to
fail miserably at them. It would just be fun for that to be a thing.
It would be fun to be in,
If
but
If I
would
don't
be
have to
so
sing,
hard
I'd do
to get
Pippin from
everything.
Lord of the Rings. Just be a fool of a took.
I feel like for me, like original trilogy Star Wars would be the easiest to get through. Like those are and again, that's also though going back to the whole thing that we discussed with Flick Syncs earlier. I also feel like I'm 0% prepared to actually do that. But like if it came to actually doing one, I feel like that would be the best chance I would have of succeeding. Would be like an OG Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd be able to do successfully. I can't act. It's a hard question.
Yeah, I think I agree. It would be super fun to be in Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, but like there's so much to it that like I could not do it very well.
Yeah.
but I think I could do something like Pride and Prejudice or Becoming Jane or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe or the first Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also feel like, going back to Finding Nemo, I feel like the answer to this is a lot of movies that are an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because, like,
If we're going for success,
yeah,
something that's 90 minutes, and for me personally, Finding Nemo, because
Yeah.
I just memorized the heck out of it. But if we're going just for fun and entertainment value, I would say, Lord of the Rings,
Mhm.
Harry Potter, Marvel,
Don't forget,
Star Wars.
You don't have to have the whole thing memorized. You just have to have your part memorized.
Well, they alternate characters in a scene where, like, if the main character isn't in that scene, the book says it'll switch him to the character with the most
The most
dialogue.
lines, yeah.
Yeah, but
So if
it's still not all the dialogue.
Right, but for someone like
Nani?
me, I'm not going to sit down and watch the Star Wars movies several times through to memorize them to play a game or whatever. So, like, if I can just play it with a setting that's like, I don't know, you get to just do like half of it or a
Mhm.
couple of scenes and be successful, great. I would love to do that. Sounds fun.
I feel like if this became a popular game, there'd also be like difficulty levels.
Yeah.
Like easy would have like prompts and stuff for you, and you can just like read along with the script and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then there's like intermediate that just like you
Expert
can ask for
is, like,
prompts, and then expert is you better know this,
actual,
or you're
like,
gonna lose.
You have to know
Or
the
you
movie
die in
back
real
and
life.
forth.
Yeah, or you
Yeah.
die.
Do not attempt.
And my husband in chat says brown coat me, and I agree. Being in Firefly would be sick.
Mhm.
Call wash. Darn it. Oh, shoot. But I do. I just want to play with dinosaurs in the cockpit. That's all.
Yeah.
It's my kind of life.
Mhm.
Sure, I die. That's fine.
I have this magnet that says, I really wish we brought dinosaurs back. I really want a stegosaurus. And it's just, if the Oasis did exist, I would own a pet dinosaur. Let's be honest. I would go and get myself a TARDIS and a pet dinosaur, and that would be that. And I would just have fun riding my pet dinosaur around, and just, wouldn't even bother leveling up for a good month. I would just be like, look, guys, I have a dinosaur. Look at my dinosaur. His name is Jerry.
Jerry.
And that's Beth over there. These are my dinosaur pets.
So much food.
It's the Oasis. Anyway.
What level do you think you have to be to get a dinosaur? I guess is
Okay,
also
fine.
the
I would
question.
level up to the point in which I would have a dinosaur pet, and then I would just go and get one and not bother to level up anymore. Because I just want a dinosaur pet. At least one, if not a whole heart.
So this next one is one that I added, kind of going along those same lines. But it's, if you were Halliday and you had to pick a flick sync to have in the quest, what movie would it be?
I wouldn't
Ferris
change the
Bueller's Day
decision.
Off.
Okay, and why? So why Ferris Bueller's?
I don't know. It's the first movie that
Okay,
came to
that's fine.
mind.
I would still be perfectly fine with setting it as Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Like, not gonna lie, I'd probably be like, yeah, that works.
That's like the default setting. It
Yeah.
looks like Clippy pops up. It looks like you're trying to create a quest. Would you like to would you like to copy Halliday's?
I'd be like, wait, what was his again? Like, yes, keep it, done. And then the system crashes because it's Clippy.
Because it's Clippy. Classic Clippy. Shanine, what about you?
Like maybe the first Avengers or the first Pirates of the Caribbean. those are like some of the first movies that I remember watching like multiple times that aren't like kids movies.
Mhm. For me, it would be V for Vendetta.
Oh,
Because
touche.
I want that like
That's a
stick it
good
to
one.
the authority thing at the very
Yeah.
end of like you're about to become the authority.
I have the book sitting
Like-
on my dresser over there, and to read.
Yeah.
Slash, I'm like halfway through it or 2/3 way through it, but
Yeah.
that's a great one.
Yeah, 'cause I just think that like the message that like because again, because like all the things clear like have their clear purpose from Halliday's perspective, and like I just think like that idea of like so there's like the things that like I would connect with versus the things of like I want you to get the meaning here.
Yeah.
And so that for me that's why like I thought of like V for Vendetta is what I would want to see, and then like oh we should ask what other people would like, and so
The chaotic part of me also wants to just be like, The Room.
oh yeah. So the other part of me, like if I was trying to do it for real, would be a hypothetical Avatar movie. Because people that knew me knew
Well
that there was no way
done.
I would pick that. And so like that would be like the grand reveal is that there's no way it would actually have been a hypothetical Avatar movie.
What other movies would be good for that, for like the big reveal? Like The Big Lebowski? I'd probably, I could do that. Used to go to
I
that
got
once a year.
mentioned in class the other day, so I wrote it down because I haven't seen it.
You should.
So
I
it's
actually
on my
haven't seen
list.
it either.
I have a movie list going that is several sticky notes long at this point, courtesy of my
I'm a
professors.
dude.
Although I kind of ignore the ones where they're like, guess what? I edited the Vampire Diaries or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not going to watch it if you're purely pitching it for the sake of you worked on it. If you worked on it and you're recommending it because you legitimately think it's good and not because you worked on it, then okay, that's a different scenario. But
Big Lebowski is a classic.
that's why I wrote it down.
They show it every year at the Myrnaloy, so you know it's good.
I've heard all good things about the Big Lebowski.
If we're going classics like that, then also Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That'd be a
That
good
gave
one.
me nightmares. I watched it once and it gave me nightmares, and I will never watch
man.
it again.
I love it. Being
Like
in the
it
time
actually,
warp.
yeah, it's just,
That would be so fun.
I watched it in college and it gave me nightmares. So
Oh.
it's yeah, not because it was scary, just because of real world family scenarios that were handled very poorly in connection to that. So it's just one of those movies that gave me real life nightmares. That it's not that it's a bad movie or anything, but I'm never gonna watch that movie again. Anyway, that's just my life.
Okay. Any final thoughts on Ready Player One?
Good read.
Just
Yeah,
wait
I
till
really
you
enjoyed
get
it.
through
Not the
Ready
best
Player
read.
2.
Yeah.
Chris, you're getting into the next question.
Yeah.
I know.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Awesome
I'm
read.
way
highly
ahead of
recommend.
myself. I'm done.
I'll say I was definitely happy to have this after Treasure Island from last month, and so
It's super fun, super geeky,
mhm.
not too light, but not too heavy.
It's just fun with all the references.
Yeah.
It's pretty much how I wrote my campaign.
All right. And for our last question, would you read more by Ernest Cline? I hope your answer is yes. Because
Oh, There's a
next
sequel.
month,
There's a sequel to the book that we did.
what surprise!
Wow. Imagine that.
Our book club for March will be Ready Player 2.
There was no way to see this coming. I
Yay!
am completely shocked.
It's like, did we?
Shocker.
It's almost like we picked this one because of this one.
It's almost like we planned
What?
it.
It was just really easy to get 2 months out of the way, actually.
Yeah.
We procrastinated too much and couldn't think of what we should do.
Us procrastinate and have to make decisions at the last minute, Chris? Never.
Wow.
Doesn't sound like us.
Does it sound like us maybe 2 hours ago? Hour and a half ago?
Technically, we're still procrastinating on that.
Yes.
Technically.
Okay, so yes, our March book club will be Ready Player 2 on March 25th. We are going to be having a fun Ready Player 1 watch party. We are going to have movies to vote on, such as Ready Player 1, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and more that will be available. We'll have a poll up on Twitter on Saturday for that.
More choices that we've definitely picked
Yeah. And we'll put out to the
before we
listeners,
air.
if you are aware of more movies that are referenced in Ready Player One that are available through Netflix or basically Disney Plus or maybe Amazon Prime, and we can do those, let us know, and then we can add them to the poll. It was really hard to find some of the movies that are referenced in a way that was free for people. So, or free, air quotes free, but you know.
Readily available for
readily
the most
available.
popular streaming services.
Okay. I guess we are First Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come chat with us at our Discord server. Find our sweet, sweet merch at our Redbubble store. Email us at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch our live show on Twitch and find the video on our YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And check out our website at onegeek411.com. I am Shanine at the Hoot and Howl on Twitter and Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES on Instagram.
I am Emma at I am not prepared on pretty much every platform. That's I am not prepared with an I.
I'm Humar Whittle, and my name's Cameron.
And I'm not so foreign.
You always need more books.
Wash your hands.
Play a video game?
Hook up my food tube. Let's go.
Come on, let's go.